Good morning, everyone. For those who are in the back, can you read me all right? Could you raise your hand so I know that, thank you very much. We're ready to begin. So for those who may have a cell phone or a pager, I'd like to ask the favor that if you wouldn't mind placing those devices on the courtesy mode at this time, please. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for being here today as we mourn the loss and celebrate the life of Peter Herrmann. My name is Ryan Morrill, and I'm a pastor here in the area. I did not know Peter, but I was able to talk with the family on Thursday evening for almost an hour, and I got an incredible and beautiful picture of this man, who he was, his inner strength, his work ethic, and his zest for life. He was a father, a son, a husband, a manager, a company owner, a singer, a friend, a leader, and an inspiration to nearly everyone he came into contact with. Like I said, he was an incredible man, loved by God, and he lived through many times, good and bad times. And God has loved him through all of these times. I think it's safe to say that Peter was a man who understood the meaning of time. He grabbed hold of it. He wanted to make the most of the time that he had. He learned from an early age that sometimes you have to take risks and get what you want out of life. In Ecclesiastes 3, the writer talks about time. We've heard these words in the form of a famous song. It says this: "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build again. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them again. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. And a time for war and a time for peace." His life was truly a story of time. Think about what he saw and what he experienced. Born before the start of the greatest war in the history of the world, he lived in a country that was devastated by it. He experienced Reconstruction, immigration, and every moment of history that we read about now in textbooks in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And now in modern history as well. He was a man for his time, and anyone who came into contact with him was impacted by the time they spent with him. Now, God has a plan. I believe it with all my heart. And for Peter, it was a plan that involved 84 years of his life. And after talking with you all, I think it's safe to say that he accomplished God's plan. Truly accomplished it. In loving you, helping lead this family. And I hope you're incredibly proud of this man. Your husband, your dad, your Opa, and for all of us in this room, for your friend. So let's talk about the time that Peter had on this earth. He was born in Wuppertal, Germany on September 20th, 1936. And as I said, Europe was on the cusp of war, and it struck in 1939. And Wuppertal was bombed, and nearly half the city was destroyed. He and Ursula both survived as children, and as Germany was picking up the pieces following the war in the late 40s and early 50s, Ursula and Peter met through a church youth group and began dating and soon fell in love. They wanted to marry young, but they had to wait because Ursula needed to be at least 18. And once she turned 18, they married. On September 20th, his birthday, 1957, he was 21 years old, right? 3 years older than you? Going after the younger girls is what he was doing, right? There was a housing shortage in Germany. I'm sure prices were skyrocketing, kind of like they are around here right now. And rumor had it that things were much better and easier on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. So soon enough, they packed up everything and sailed across the ocean to Canada with not much between them. 2 suitcases maybe, and $100 in their pocket. And they started a new life and worked hard, took every job they could, and soon enough built a family. I love this. They only had each other. They had left everything on the other side of the world, so the only person they could turn to was the other. They grew close, more in love, and rode the waves of life. After 7 years, I believe, Andrew was born, 1964. And then shortly after, Karen came. They were proud parents, and they pursued their life and poured their life into and with their children. Peter got a job at North American Plastics, showed promise as a hard worker and leader, and soon moved to a manager position, and then moved to America. He managed several companies, he traveled much, and in 1980 purchased a company in Cleveland, correct? He worked hard and was very successful. He was busy and would have stayed that way, but unfortunately a heart attack forced an early retirement. Struggling probably. On his own life. And in it, he highlighted the plastic industry, which I guess, for many of you probably know this, but he knew a lot about plastic, right? And the transformation that it brought, especially to the automotive industry, which when he started, I guess it was 20-some-odd% of a vehicle. The rest of it mainly steel. But over the course of his career, it transformed the auto industry and made up nearly 90% of the vehicle when he retired. His second book is a fiction book. It's a spy novel. It's not yet released. It's still in the editing phase, but watch out when it drops. Got a bestseller on our hands. In his free time, he sang with the German choir, and I hope I can say this right, the GBU Saxonia Rheingold Chorus. And I know many of you are here today, and they will be performing for us at the end. They've been singing since 1991. I think that's when you guys started singing, correct? 1991. And they've traveled all over the world, Poland, Czechoslovakia, toured the East Coast. He was a leader. He led the German men's club. And this I'm just not going to get. How do you say it? Scharafia Detroiter. Scharafia Detroiter. Apologize. This is an incredible club, and I know many of you are here today, and we're going to hear from one of the leaders as well in just a little bit, Dieter. They provided scholarships, they read poetry, and just a beautiful group of men that shared their life together. He was the master of ceremony for costume balls associated with Mardi Gras. I can't picture how that all worked and how he got to Mardi Gras, but all those things. And he would go to Vegas with the German club as well. And he was an entertainer. He entertained the whole group. He was an amazing man. He was full of life, and there was never a time when he walked into a room where he couldn't or wouldn't become the center of attention. And to many in the room that are here today, he was Opa, a special title of grandfather in German that he took seriously. And he loved his grandchildren with all the time that he had. Rebecca, where are you? Is Rebecca here? Rebecca mentioned how in elementary school or middle school, he was always there for her to take her to practices. And Kayla, where are you at, Kayla? And Kayla said, as a step-grandfather, he cared for me. He did not treat her any differently. She was always part of the family. And Chris, the youngest, right? You're the youngest? Yeah. She's at the University of Alabama and recalls how she was really stressed out because she didn't know anyone there. And she was considering going back to Virginia. And then he wrote her a letter. And I think we're going to hear part of that letter, right? That helped and stressed that it was okay to be independent. So I can't wait. I won't steal your thunder. Can't wait to hear that. But it sure did help you in an amazing way. Katie, in a similar fashion, recalls a long conversation with her Opa. And she had moved to Virginia, and like Chris, it was nerve-wracking. And her Opa helped and coached her through it. He taught her reliability, strength, and leadership. He was a great teacher and a resource. He was a man who had lived it, if you think about where he started and how he came from the other side of the world and had to basically build from the ground up in his entire life. Stephen was part of an amazing trip to Europe when they were younger. What an amazing trip. They did it over Easter, arrived in Rome, and they weren't there very long when all of a sudden they heard a familiar voice that was right there next to them. It was the Pope standing right amongst them. Karen, Kayla, and Stephen saw it all. And this man, their Opa, had a knack for being in the right place at the right time. Sandra, as a daughter-in-law, came into this family of Omi and Opa and never felt like she was separate from the family. They just wrapped their arms around her and her daughter. She loved her in-laws. What daughter-in-law loves their in-laws, right? Some of you do. Well done. She loved her in-laws. Karen's husband, John, who's in the golf business, asked Peter, and somehow he joined their golf group, and they would go up north and play golf. And he got along best with the guys who had a lot of scotch in their suitcases. Let's just say that much as well. And Andrew said that he had the best dad in the whole world. And in the last year or two, he made a point of calling every single day. Well done on that, by the way. He knew his dad was getting sicker, and it was the best part of Andrew's day to talk to his dad. And Karen said this. She said one thing she can say about her dad is anyone who was around him, anyone who came in contact with him was blessed to meet him. He was the most intelligent man in the room. He was so smart. No one could compete with him. He didn't brag about it, but he was smart. He was so charismatic. And I love this line, he was a party in a box. Love flowed around this man in his marriage and in his family. In the book of 1 Corinthians, the writer, the Apostle Paul says this. You've probably heard this before with weddings, but I think it's so applicable to this man's life. It says, love is patient. Love is kind. Think of putting Peter's name here. Peter is patient. Peter is kind. Peter did not envy. He did not boast. He was not proud, at least on the outside. I'm sure he was inside of his family. He did not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. Peter is not easily angered. Was he easily angered? No? We'll leave that one out.
She's the one.
Ursula was the one. That's great. Love keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Love always protects. Peter always protects. He always trusts, always hopes. And Peter always perseveres. So that's the information I was able to gather, just part of the story, and I think it's a small fraction of it. So we're going to hear from three different individuals today. Dieter Geyser. I think you were a high officer. Where are you at, Dieter? Yeah, come on up, Dieter. I believe you're going to read for us. He was part of the men's, this German club, the Scharafia Detroiter, and he's going to share a few words with us. And then after that, Katie and Chris are going to share a few words as well. And Katie and Chris, you can both come on up when he's done. Does that sound good? Not right now.
Hello? Can you hear me? My name is Dieter Geyser. I'm originally from Wisconsin and Swabia, and I became a friend of Peter's through the GBU choir and Scharafia Detroitia, which is a worldwide German-speaking society of which he was the Oberschlaraffen, or president, for the past 9 years. The Scharafia organization was originally started back in 1859 at the University of Prague, former Bohemia, primarily to relieve the stresses of the day, with a pledge of friendship, art, and humor. 260 clubs have spread throughout the four corners of the world, and their motto in arte voluptas translates in art lies the pleasure. We met the Herrmanns at a Carpathia function in Michigan summer, at our first Michigan summer, who encouraged us to join their GPU Saxonia Rheingold mixed chorus. We eagerly attended many German functions with them, since northern Wisconsin had many other nationalities represented, such as Finns, Norwegians, Poles, and Swedes, but very few German. Peter and I attended a GBU picnic at Horst and Marianne Neumann's Lake Cottage in 2009, where we were first approached to visit the Schlaraffia-Burg, or castle, in Redford, Michigan. The first 3 times one visits, he is called a pilger or pilgrim. And you find out only German is spoken. English is called Chinese. The next thing you learn, it is verboten to talk about politics, religion, or your job. Perhaps that's wisdom speaking. It prevents possible arguments or ill feelings. Instead, a weekly topic is chosen, and each member is supposed to write a rhyming poem or essay, if possible with a humorous twist. While sipping a glass of wine or beer, you are being entertained and educated. Back in 2009, our first introduction to even the word Schlaraffia, the existing members needed to vote whether or not we would cut the mustard. We must have, since we quickly rose to the ranks of Pilger to Knappe, then Junker. And lastly, we were both knighted to Ritter, or a knight, in 2011. Ritter Blassicus from Bergischen Land, and myself as Ritter Geyser. Now it would be appropriate time to phase in how we start our meetings. And that's with a song that's called Abendlied. So if you Schlaraffen would stand up, please, and start with that song. Ist der Abend da, die Arbeit kann geschehen. Ein Abend in Schlaraffia, das Gemüt erhöhen. Dem Uhu gilt der erste Gruß, den Herrmann verehren muss. Oh, die Lieder zu, die Lieder zu, Gern eilen wir mit frohem Sinn zu unserer Arbeit wieder. Schnell geht ein schöner Abend hin bei Geyser, Klang und Lieder. Man sieht's an jedes Bruders Aug, am ganzes Blick, am Magenhauch. Das Herz gehört dazu, das Herz gehört dazu, Es ist Schlaraffia schönstens hier ein harmlos altes Schweben. Drum soll es stets als Brüder hier unser Leben leben. Verwandt sei aller Zank und Leid. This is not the only song we sing, it's just the first song. We sing many more songs in between, depends on the time we have available. But now I want to get on to some more of what I wrote down here. So elections were coming up in 2012, and guess who was elected? Peter als der Oberschlarafe des Äußeren, which means external affairs, and as the Oberschlarafe des Inneren, internal affairs. I was chosen. We were a good team. I'll miss him. Peter had a gift for writing prose and witty comments, making his presiding as our Herrlichkeit or His Excellency up on the throne or podium, always an enjoyable and light-hearted evening. Visiting dignitaries from other Reiche or clubs, such as Buffalo, Toronto, Cleveland, Chicago, Milwaukee, New Orleans, and even Europe, also appreciated his humor and wit. Peter thoroughly enjoyed the intellectual and relaxing atmosphere of our meetings and our traveling to other clubs listed before. But COVID-19 brought a stop to all of that back in March of 2020. Not having had regular contact with each other over a year, Peter's health problems were not known to all. His writ gen Ahal, or right into Ahala, came as a shock to all of us. We miss Peter greatly, but are confident he has found a good resting place amidst all the other Schlaraffen greats. In closing, I will leave you with our special Schlaraffen greetings. Lulu. Lulu, dear Schlaraffen friend Peter, rest in peace. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to thank everyone. Oh, okay. There we go. Sorry. I just wanted to thank everybody so much for coming here to join us in honoring one of the most charismatic and intelligent men that we've had the joy to call our family. I know everybody here has so many stories and memories that we can share, but we would probably be here till tomorrow going through them all. So I just wanted to say that Opa's cleverness and kindness was well known amongst everybody, friends, colleagues, but he was most himself with us, his family. If there was ever a time that any one of us called or needed anything from him, he was always there with an answer, advice, a joke, a recipe, anything. And like was mentioned earlier, when I moved down to Virginia, I had a lot of reservations about leaving my friends, my family, my home. And Opa sat me down and he talked me out of all of my fears, explaining to me that life is an adventure that we can't live from the comforts of our home, but we have to experience it for ourselves. And again, like earlier, Chris had a similar experience, and she wanted to share what she had with everybody as well.
Hi, everyone. Pastor gave me a killer intro. So, there's. I'm taller. How closer should I get? Hello. Can everybody hear me now? So, as some of you may know, I'm a current junior attending the University of Alabama, and this is something that I had originally been and felt very unsure about. In fact, I was so unsure that I was ready to get up and transfer back to school in Virginia for comfort. However, I was lucky enough to get the chance to talk to Omi and Opa about this situation before making any rash decisions. And through some very witty comments and very inspirational quotes, they both reassured me that they believed in me. And that was literally all it took to feel okay. So I'd like to share this poem that Opa wrote to me during my times of doubt. A poem for my granddaughter, Christian. The day came you left the house you knew. For 18 years it had been your home. You were loved there and you were part of the crew. Now you're in Tuscaloosa and feel a bit alone. My advice to you, stop looking to the past. What's gone is gone and is gone forever. That's the way it is. The die has been cast. You are smart, now you need to be clever. Not everyone you meet will be your friend. There will be so-called friends with hidden desires. And here is the lesson I want to send. Be alert and catch those dirty little liars. Go and spread your wings. You were taught how to fly. Now is the time to see the world around you, just like the young eagle searching in the sky for the highest mountain peak with a panoramic view. The world is an open portal for you to explore. There is so much for you to see. I wish I could help you and tell you more, but this is your world now and you have the key. Be aware that some roads have a rough terrain. Its dangers cleverly hidden from plain sight. Navigate carefully to avoid any pain. Be true to yourself and all will be right. Don't forget to make times for your studies. Your future surely depends on it. There will be time later to be with your buddies, and no matter how rough it gets, never quit. So be nice to the people you meet on the ladder going up. You may need them later on coming down. I love you, Opa. So in sum, I think we can all agree that Opa was a thoughtful, kind, and caring man. He was sensible towards people in both an emotional and knowledgeable way. He emphasized happiness through dark times and encouragement through doubts, always full of wisdom and an overall light that had touched every single one of us. Opa, thank you for teaching me strength and to never fear time or the unknown future. Everything is simply inevitable, so it's important to make the most of the present. Your friends and family will love you forever. Thank you.
Okay, how come I didn't get a letter like that? I want to know where mine was.
I would like a letter as well.
Here's your car, see you later.
Hang on to that letter, Chris. Could be worse something someday. To those of you that, obviously we only had 3 people share. I know many of you probably have memories, stories, words you would like to say as well. And so we just wanted to say there will be a time, hopefully over at the luncheon at the banquet hall following this, where you will have time to do that. We talked about doing it here, but we thought, like I think Katie said, we might be here till tomorrow. So we want to make sure people could get fed following this. So I'll just close by saying in this next time, we will have to live our time here on earth without this man. But we do take solace knowing that he is in heaven with God, joyful and experiencing new life there with a new body, new mind, reunited with old friends, and finding new ones as well. One thing that was obvious that Peter did as a father and grandfather and husband, and that most every father does, husband does, is he sacrificed. He sacrificed his time, his energy, I'm sure his money, right? And much of his life to his family. We learn of this sacrifice from Christ, who made the ultimate sacrifice for our lives. Without him, we cannot love. And without him, we cannot care well or give well to others. In Romans 5:8 it said, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Sacrifice changes the future and creates better days for those who come after it. And I think there were better days created for this family and that they're living in now. In Jeremiah 29:11 it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, plans to give you a hope and a future." This is a man who had a hope and a future for those who would come after him. He passes on a spirit of love, of sacrifice, of hard work, of perseverance and determination. Because of men like Peter, we live in a world today where we have hope, and we know there is a better future out there. And finally, Peter was a man who loved and was loved. He loved his family. He loved his friends. He loved those that were under his care. He loved well because he was loved by Jesus. A book in the Bible written by a man named John tells us about why love is so important. It says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. And everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as a sacrifice for our sins. So, dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God. But if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us." So love is this force that holds everything together in this world. If you could sum up the entire Bible in one word, all the complexities of it, I would still say that that word is love. Now, funerals are always that moment where you stop and think about what you are doing with your life. And whenever someone passes, you stop and recall moments with that person. And you don't recall necessarily how wealthy they were, or their job titles, or the nice things that they had. Those are not things that come up. They were not mentioned up here. What ends up getting talked about, what ends up getting shared, is how you loved others. It's the most important thing. And Peter loved through the highs and lows of his 84 years. And my prayer is we will do the same starting today by loving the ones that God has called us to love. And there is nothing more important than that. So who do you need to reach out to? Who do you need to forgive? Who do you need to encourage and share the words that mean so much? The simple words of, "I love you." Again, Peter loved. And Peter is loved. So let us do the same. So finally, to close, I want to read from the 23rd Psalm, a vision of love and joy and peace that Peter experienced, I believe, here on earth, and that he is experiencing right now in the arms of the Lord. It says this, "The Lord is Peter's shepherd. He lacks nothing. He makes him lie down in green pastures. He leads him beside quiet waters. He refreshes his soul. He guides him along the right paths for his name's sake. And even though Peter walks through the darkest valleys here on earth, he will fear no evil, for you are with him. Your rod and your staff, they comfort him. Surely your goodness and love will follow Peter all of the days of his life, now and forever. And he will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." I'm going to close in prayer, and as I do, I want to invite the men's choir up. And you can turn. We were going to do it at the reception hall. Yes, we're going to do it at the luncheon. Yeah, if that's okay. Yeah, okay. But as I pray, I'd love to invite the men's choir. I just want to make sure I say it correctly again. The GBU, Saxonia Rheingold Chorus. If you want to go ahead and start making your way up. Male and female choir. I'm so sorry. The men and women to make your way on up. And I will pray, and then when we are done praying, we will hear some beautiful words from them. So as they're walking up, if you will join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this man. We thank you for his life and his love. We thank you for the risks he took and for his legacy and what carries forward in each of his grandchildren, in his son and daughter, in his wife, and in each person in this room. So thank you so much for the energy, for the charisma, for the joy you gave this man, and for how he impacted others. And as a result of that, Lord, let us go and impact others as well. Let us live our life full of love, as Peter loved. So thank you so much for loving him. Thank you so much for sacrificing your life for him, as you have sacrificed it for all of us in this room. So Lord, let us begin today to love those we need to love. And thank you again for the example that you gave us in your Son.
Let me introduce the GBU's Antonio Rheingold Choir. It's a mixed choir, and we would like to perform a song that Peter, our late first vice president, has sung with us many times. The name of the song is Der Lindenbaum. It's a song of memory, of heartfelt.
Dear friends, on behalf of Mrs. Herrmann and the rest of our loving family, I'd like to thank Pastor Ryan for officiating Mr. Herrmann's funeral today. To you many relatives, neighbors, and friends for your attendance here today and many other kind of expressions of sympathy. A special thank you goes out to the GBU choir. And very shortly, there'll be a wonderful celebration at Piccirilli Restaurant, which is located at 52830 Van Dyke, which is just south of 24 Mile on the east side of the street. So once the funeral service is concluded, the funeral home, all are welcome to join the family for the luncheon there. And I understand there'll be an opportunity for further memory sharing and other remarks. So it's been the request of immediate family, those seated right in front of me, that they'll be the last to visit. So what we'd like to do is in invite the friends and neighbors if they would kindly start from the rear of the room, walk down the side aisle on your right and pay your final respects. And if you exit through those double doors on my immediate right and kindly go directly to your cars. Lastly, we ask for your safety if you would withhold for any expressions of sympathy to the family until you meet with them over at Piccirilli. And for those who may not be familiar with our community, I do have maps available, so once you do come by, you're always welcome to motion to me, and I'll be happy to give you a map. So if all the friends would kindly start from the rear of the room at this time, please.